Hello again, our peeps. We are at the green table and the sun is shining, which is kind of not the norm, at least when I make these, but we'll give it a go and see what happens. Now today we're going to talk about perspective, and in particular 1-point perspective. Now before we kind of get into this, and it won't be a very long video, I'll just show quickly how to think spatially about perspective. But the important thing is, I would say, and I support this with all the videos I do, is that it's important to know the fundamentals of art making, perspective, shading, things like that, human anatomy. But don't be a slave to it. Don't let it dictate what your practice will be or how you express yourself. Merely use the different techniques and the different established parameters as your guideline. And I'll show you an example of this. And once again, we're talking about 1-point perspective. Today I'm going to use graphite sticks. They're very similar to pencils, and I try to use different materials every time, so at least we can touch on those. But these are huge chunks of graphite mixed with a touch of clay to hold it together. But it's essentially a pencil without the casing and a larger surface to work with. This is a 2B. So as we were talking about before, the B is blackness. So a bit darker than an HB, but a little more brittle, which is fine. I like these. These are good for doing large pieces. Like I said, the pencil is the best way to go as any starting material that you use. It erases. It's not as messy as charcoal, things like that. So that's it. That's a graphite stick. Now, with 1-point perspective, I was talking to a friend about this, and this is very interesting because he was telling me that he can't think spatially, and his brain just doesn't work that way. He can't think of a flat page as being a space of any kind. To him, it's flat, and it always remains flat. And that's an interesting point, because obviously people have different ways of looking at things, and you're going to think differently based on where your train of thought will lead you as far as looking at planes or spatial awareness. But don't be limited by that. If you have absolutely zero awareness of space, depth or space, or being able to visualize that in an abstract way, don't be limited by that. Do abstraction then. Or do something very surreal. You don't have to be chained by the rhetoric that's been established. And that's just it. I mean, if you really struggle with drawing a person, a face, why, you don't need to draw a face. You do whatever you want. This is your playground. Your surface is your playground to do anything you want. What we are doing is just talking about some of the fundamentals to set just a sort of temporary stage, and then you can bounce off of that. Okay, I just want to get that out of the way because that's important. Creativity is not limited to your ability to do something. We're all creative. Now, 1-point perspective. What you're doing on your page is you're creating a vanishing point, a point where everything moves towards to create that illusion of a horizon line. Depth is what you're doing. The standard way people will draw, there's your point. So then everything will emanate out of this, like a flower almost, with the petals coming out. But what you see a lot of people do is they'll use a ruler, section it off, and they'll do this, and measure everything. I honestly believe that that is being a slave. That's being a slave to the technique. A ruler is just, that's like drafting. You're starting to get into drafting and things like that. It doesn't even have to be a square. You can do your point and then triangles. So your whole point to doing this, using 1-point perspective, is you're creating a vanishing point where the viewer's eye can flow to. And that is the trick. So I'll show you again. And I'm not even going to draw the vanishing point. I'm thinking of it right here somewhere. So then let's say, I'm just going to put an orb, an orb, an orb, an orb. So this is basically a one-point perspective, and these circles, spheres, whatever you want to call them, I think of them as spheres, but they're all kind of floating towards that vanishing point, and that takes the viewer's eye into that. That's the trick, that's what you're trying to do. You can create your horizon, and remember, and I mean this is a very common, I mean everyone knows this, but things get smaller as they go further back. So that's how you're adding to that illusion. That's how you're really kicking that illusion into place, is by having the large objects in front and smaller things in the back. I don't know what that is, but I'll draw over it anyway. So, I'll just quickly do, and I'll show you just sort of the standard way, which is your point. Let's create a horizon line. We'll have a road coming out. Now, if you want to get into all the measurements, I mean, I'm not going to, I will tell you not to, but because you're just overwhelming yourself with things that are not important to creativity per se. But if it's something that you're very interested in, you want to illustrate, you want to really create the illusion of real and depth, there are videos out there that they go through it all, every single line. I'm more about having fun with it. So, with that said, we have our road. Just going to create a little bit of dark, and then let's say telephone poles, just so that you can really see how that illusion is created. So we'll say that these are power poles, telephone poles, something to that effect. See, even the cross beams that I'm putting, I'm kind of thinking of that vanishing point too, like this. So what that does is creates that illusion of that road going in the background. And that's it. That's one-point perspective. I mean, it doesn't have to be a road. It could be anything. It could be an interior that you're thinking of. You're thinking of sort of everything emanating out from there. Or a tunnel. I mean, you can make a tunnel if you wanted. You can make a room. As long as you always, if you're interested in sort of displaying depth and that spatial properties of depth, then the one-point perspective is the easiest way to do it. You can start to go into two-point perspective where you have 2 points where things are coming from, but I mean it's a bit different. It starts to complicate things a bit more, and that's where you start getting into the true representation of the real. One-point perspective is a good place to start. It's easy. Like I said, you just have your point and everything. Think of this as your black hole. Everything is kind of going towards it. And the lines, you know, anything else is coming out to each corner. So everything is flowing in towards that point, and smaller to bigger as it comes forward. You adhere to that, you can create that illusion of depth. And it's a good place to start to sort of create that sense of the depth of an actual environment. But like I said, have fun with it, explore it. You can go a lot of places with this. You can start to build different points, make it into a 2-point, a 3-point, and actually create somewhat of a surreal type environment where things are floaty. Don't get bogged down by trying to make something look real. Use it as a stage to bounce off of, to just express yourself, express what you want to share with whoever's looking at your art, or even just with yourself if you're just documenting things. So one-point perspective, not much need to spend too much time on it. It's one of the basic principles, and it's, you know, you whip out a few of these, you just play with it, you'll get the sense of it. If you have a problem conceptualizing spaces in this way, move on to something else. Use different techniques that work for you and excite you. But just wanted to touch on one-point perspective. So once again, thank you for viewing, appreciate it. And if you don't mind, please subscribe, it's good incentive. And there's links below to some of my artwork that's on the website and whatnot. So thank you again, and I look forward to spending more time with you. Take care.